on this edition of the Flint Hills Film Collaborative.
I was sort of living two separate lives. Like, there was Adam, the person who I was actually and who my friends call me, and then there was this other person that my parents knew.
They told us, he'd never talk, he'd never eat by mouth, he'll never walk, he'll never do this.
I get a lot of enjoyment out of building each year, trying to make it better, taking somebody who you look at and you think, they're never going to be any good, but then you look at them 3 years later, 4 years later, and they're winning.
Being able to be somebody else and creating this whole different character was something so exciting.
Being oneself is always a challenge. This is the story of Adam OBrien and how he found his true self.
My name is Adam OBrien. I was born in '91, and I am here studying art. My whole family is like ridiculously artistic, and so I sort of just grew up with it in my household, just all over the place. And so I kind of always just said that it was like inevitable that I ended up being an art major, because honestly I don't think I could do anything else. I primarily do 2D art, mostly drawing. I prefer pencil, just keeping it simple. In like elementary school, everybody excluded me because I was the weird girl. All the other girls would be wandering around playing tetherball or like pretending like they were princesses, and I was running around the playground pretending like I was exploring caves or like pretending like I was a dragon or something like that. And so it was pretty obvious that I was uncomfortable in my skin and I didn't know how to act like a girl. None of the girls wanted to be friends with me, and none of the boys wanted to be friends with me either, and so I was just sort of left out of everything, which in some ways is almost worse than being bullied. But I just sort of floated through it because that's what I did. I floated through everything, and I didn't really have any emotions because I knew that I couldn't feel anything, otherwise I would have just been a wreck. All the way through like the end of 6th grade to about 8th or 9th grade, I pretty much didn't have any friends. Midway through high school, that's sort of when I had like the realization, and this is what is up with me. I know I have a word that I can put to it. And so I sort of had that realization, and really the only person that I was out to was my best friend. I think I sent her a text one day and I was like, I don't know, I've never really felt right as a girl. And like I would look at guys in high school and sometimes I would either like want to be with them, but most of the time I would just want to be them. And so we eventually decided that I was transgender. Yeah, she's always been there for me just through the entire process, and she sort of helped me solidify just deciding what I wanted to do and when I wanted to do it. When I first came out to her, I told her that I wanted to be treated as a guy and I wanted her to see me as a guy, and so when nobody else was doing that, she was the one who would always call me Adam and would always like use male pronouns and treat me as a guy. And I'm just incredibly thankful that she was there all the way through the beginning, because if I hadn't had just that one person for the last couple years of high school, it would have just been much rockier than it has been. And so that was sort of the first part of the transition, I guess. And so then when I came to college, I did a lot of research. Everything I could find on being transgender, I just ate up. And it was really helpful. It sort of helped to sort of concrete the idea that I could actually do something about it. I could become the guy that I am supposed to be. And it was just super exciting. Granted, the first couple years of college were a little bit rough just because I was sort of living two separate lives. Like, there was Adam, the person who I was actually and who my friends call me, and then there was this other person that my parents knew and people in class saw because I hadn't legally changed my name yet and I hadn't come out to my parents yet. And so that was just sort of this awkward double life time. But then I did come out to my parents a couple years ago, right before I started hormones. And then that is the second part of the transition, which is the physical part. And that began about 2 years ago when I started taking hormones. And the shot what happens is you take it every 2 weeks. It's an intramuscular injection, so I have to stab myself every 2 weeks, and that's not so fun. What it does, the effects, is that it basically brings on secondary sex characteristics, which is what men go through when they go through puberty. I don't think any guy has ever been so excited to go through puberty as trans men are. One of the things that I do get torn up about sometimes is just being lonely. And I think part of that is just because there's not a whole lot of a trans community here in Kansas, at least in Manhattan. Like, there's not a lot of people that I can really, like, talk to about that. The best experience would probably be I took a human sexuality class. We got to the section where we were talking about sexual orientation. A girl in the class raised her hand and asked how that affects trans people. And I was like, oh gosh, now I have to talk. I didn't want to talk about this, but now I have to. And so I started like explaining how for trans people it's different. And then I was like, well, I can't talk about this and not come out. And so I just took a deep breath and was like, I actually identify as transgender, and so that's why I understand this. Afterward, like a whole bunch of people came up to me and were just like, you were really brave to do that, and I'm incredibly thankful that you did. And they were just, I don't know, the amount of support that I got because of that, just even immediately after, was just, it was really heartwarming to know that people in such a conservative state did actually support me. Over the past year, I just, almost every day I'll like look at myself in the mirror and just be like, I can actually see myself. Like, I can see this person that I actually am, and like I don't look in the mirror and feel confused anymore.
On the outside, Courtney Beech and her son may look like a normal family, and in some ways they are. But what happened when life took them to their darkest moments, and how did Courtney find the strength to get out?
He's my miracle, and that's what I have to think about. You know, before he was 4 months old, they said he wasn't going to come out of the hospital, he wasn't going to make it. They told us, you know, he'd never talk, he'd never eat by mouth, you know, he'll never walk, he'll never do this. And there's still a lot of things he hasn't done, but, you know, he taught himself how to whistle, he eats like a crazed maniac. He's really happy, he loves school, he communicates in his own way, and he's just constantly making strides. And you're pretty darn cute. That's a good one, right? Eddie suffered an accident when he was 3.5 months old and spent 2.5 weeks in the hospital in Kansas City. He was sedated for the better part of that, and you know, he had a severe traumatic brain injury, and they told us that he wasn't going to make it. While he was in the hospital, the whole family was under investigation because they felt that it couldn't have happened the way that we said. It couldn't have been from a fall. They decided that it was shaken baby and that was it. And that was another part that was really jarring because there's, you know, no one in my family that would hurt my child. I would never hurt my child. When he got discharged from the hospital, he was actually discharged to a foster family, and that was really rough. That he was away from us for a day and a half, and that was probably the worst day and a half of my life. Most of my day would consist of, you know, holding him, feeding him, taking him to doctor's appointments. There were times that, you know, we had to go to Kansas City 3 times a week. There were a lot of sleepless nights. About 1.5 years ago, when I finally was just exhausted and so low and everything, I finally accepted help and said, okay, we can get a nurse. So we got our first nurse, and she was fine. She was amazing. But the problem was it kind of threw me into a spiral of, well, now there's this person here to do everything I was doing. What's my role? Why should I even get up in the morning? And so then I stopped getting up in the morning sometimes. I'd stay in bed all day because I could. I went and saw the therapist that I was seeing, and I looked at her and asked her point blank, what do you do with somebody who wants to die? It was near the end of the session, and she just kind of blew me off and said, oh, well, I would tell them not to do anything stupid, but it's 4 o'clock, so I need to go because my next person is here. And that just, just kind of set the ball rolling for what happened next.
We make them think you're a nice boy.
If the professional who's supposed to be taking care of you doesn't even realize what's going on when you ask a pointed question like that, who can you really turn to? You're encouraged to get help, but when the help isn't listening, what do you do? The next morning, I took a bunch of pills, and the moment that last pill hit my throat, I was like, that was a dumb thing to do. That is not what I wanted to do. This is a mistake. And so I quickly got a ride to the hospital and went through the process of having a charcoal milkshake and drinking that down because the alternative is stomach pumping, and that's not very fun either. So then I was sent to one of our fine psychiatric institutions in the state, which ended up being almost more traumatic than anything else. Looking back, I feel like I really had to hit that lowest point to get out of it. I had to go to a place that was way outside my experience and my comfort zone to realize that the things that I was facing weren't that bad, and that at least things could get better where I was at. As low as you get, and you still have logical moments where you're like, oh wait, suicide is the most selfish thing to do in the world. It's not about, you have to think about all the other people that you're leaving behind. And, I just tried to focus on that he needed me, and he needed me to get better and fight for him and take care of him. And people want to care for you, but they don't necessarily know how. And so it becomes tricky in finding the right ways to do that. I feel guilty that I had to, lose my shit and go to the hospital and not be here for him and for our son. And so it's just, it's been hard. I'm in a good spot right now. But it's true, things can get better. They do get better, and he's proof of that. So you're always getting better, right? I look forward to the surprises, not knowing this could be the day that he gets up and, starts talking or walking or crawling or sits up by himself, whatever. I'll take it. But I guess, I know that he's got so much potential, and, I look forward to the day that he starts crawling, and then I'll have to barricade everything, but it'll be worth it. I'll be happier than I'll be, annoyed, obviously. I know he'll walk. I know he won't be in a wheelchair forever. I can say that now, and because he's really mobile and squealy. He's not gonna have, an average life, but who wants to have an average life? He'll just do things in his time and be normal for him, right?
For the last 10 years, Patrick Sweeney has been the head coach of the K-State women's rowing team. He's built up one of the country's elite programs using a blueprint that's unlike any other. Before that, he was a 4-time Olympic medal winner as a coxswain of the British national team. Here's mileage.
I'd always really enjoyed coaching at the collegiate level. I really got the bug for it there, in its teaching. One of the things when I was on the British national team, one of my main functions was building crews, building teams for the Olympics, and I really enjoyed the idea of not going in at the top level, saying, okay, I'm going to win a gold medal here. It was, I want to build a team up here, and in 4 years' time, I want to win a gold medal. So it was always building a crew. So I've always enjoyed the teaching side of it. To build something like this is, to me, it's been fun. And I wanted a challenge. I wanted something that was fun. I didn't want to just twiddle my thumbs and say, okay, go to a place where it's going to be national champions, or you know you're going to where it is. This was a place to build something up, and we're still building it up, and it's getting better each year.
This is an Olympian who's chosen to coach a whole bunch of us Kansas kids who don't know anything about this sport. He chose this project knowing that it wasn't going to be easy. And that kind of inspires the girls. I think it inspires me when I'm coaching too. If he wanted an easy job, he would have gone somewhere where they recruited foreigners or they recruited kids who already knew how to row. But he came here because he wanted to start something that was homegrown. And that's basically what we're doing with each and every one of our 90 girls, is starting something that's homegrown, grassroots. From the very beginning, we're teaching them how to do this.
I was actually born very close to the River Thames. I grew up next to the river. So it was natural for me to go to a local club, and the local club would be a rowing club. From that, as a junior and under 18, I was with a group of guys who we went on to the British junior national team. We won world championship medals with them, and then that progressed to becoming a senior international. Fortunate enough again to the guys that I came through with were good enough that we picked up some more medals. And being a coxswain, we've talked about this, is that the coxswain's role is really you're the appendage of the coach. And so therefore it was natural progression for me to go from a coxswain to a coach.
The visit is what sold me on it. It wasn't Coach Sweeney. I didn't know him from anyone. It was just coming to this place and understanding that the program that he built invited people like me who had never heard about this to be a part of a team where there was no MVPs. I wasn't coming in at the bottom of the chart. I was coming in the same level as every other girl like me who didn't know what starboard was, what port was, what rowing even was. I knew that I could start at the same level as all of them, and I could earn my way up as fast as I wanted. And that was probably the most attractive thing to me. I will never forget the first time when he coached me independently as a first year. We were in our first or second, maybe second semester, doing our first or second 2K of that semester. And he was just observing creepily to the side like a head coach would. And then when he got up, he came and stood behind me and he coxed me through my last probably minute and a half. And I'll never forget that minute because it was the hardest I've ever pushed in my whole life up to that point. And in that moment, I PR'd and I realized like, hey, I can be good at this. But I felt like he cares enough about me to reach out to me and interact with my specific score and performance. And so he kind of saves up the power that he has until the right moment when he knows he can really, really make a difference.
I get a lot of enjoyment out of building each year, trying to make it better, taking somebody who you look at and you think, they're never going to be any good, but then you look at them 3 years later, 4 years later, and they're winning, and they're having fun at it, and they're enjoying it, and they've improved, and they've gotten somewhere. That to me is the enjoyment. You work wherever you have to work. We chose this place because it was a good place to bring up a child and live. I think we did the right thing.
He's a really tough coach. It's not easy to be coached by Sweeney. But he doesn't forget where we're coming from. So he's very realistic with us. And I think the most freeing thing about joining this team was knowing that politics were not going to be a part of my journey with rowing. It didn't matter if I was his favorite or if I was his frenemy. If I was the best, I was going to be voted the best. He's always sticks true to that. And if you work hard, he sees that. I think that being taught by him, being my teacher and my mentor,
the reason I'm sort of passionate about it is it opened up so many doors to me when I was a youngster, when I was 12 years old and I started it. It just gave me so many opportunities. I saw the world, it's given me a livelihood. It's, you know, some of the best friends in the world I've ever had. It's just done so much for my life that if it can open up a few more doors for a few more other people, I think that's great. I don't know what I would be doing if I wasn't doing this. I'm lucky, I'm doing the thing that I've always wanted to do.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a personality more radiant than Joey Booz. Through his various roles on stage, he's earned the respect of his acting colleagues. And although the curtain will close on his college career, as he's learned, the show goes on.
I'm Joey Booz, and I'm an actor. My name is Joey Booz, and I'm an actor. My name? My name is Joey Booz, and I'm an actor. My name is Joey Booz, and I am an actor. My grandpa does this. My name is Joey Booz, and I am an actor. Woo! My name is Joey Booz, and I'm an actor. I love putting on shows. I've always been outgoing, ever since I can remember. You know, growing up, my family was very, loving and supportive, and were fine with me, being that kid dancing around, dressing up, putting on shows. So when I started going to school and going through the older grades, like elementary, middle school, that's what I thought was normal and thought was okay. So I was fine with it for the longest time, but as I got to the older years, transitioning, middle school, those hard, awkward years, I kind of changed a lot when I went to school, which was, 8 hours, like every day a week. Being a different person was hard. It got really bad my 8th grade year, right before high school. I hated going to school. I cried all the time. I only had, I think, one friend at once, and I barely even had that one friend at times. So it got to such a bad point that my parents actually took me to a therapist, and I talked to them for a while, but it was nice to talk to somebody, but again, it didn't really change anything. I was, still getting bullied as much as I was before. It sucks to me that I think back and I had such a hard time going through all those years, which should have been, really important to me. I just didn't really care about learning at those years, just because I was so scared about going to school and hated it. If you hate something so much, you're not going to, pay attention or care. It was a really big deal for my family to accept me switching to a public school. That's kind of when I discovered theater. It just went back to what I felt was right back when I was growing up. That freedom to, express myself, not feeling confined into this certain mold that I had to be. Being able to be somebody else and creating this whole different character was something so exciting for me. It was kind of like therapy in a way. I still find something new every time I do a new project, every time I'm a new character, a new person. It's something that I need in my life and that I hope to keep doing as long as I can.
Anyone need anything? I'll bring them over here.
The what? I should grow my hair out.
Jump. Please do. Bounce.
I feel like my sister. Growing up, I was always a mama's boy. She was the one that I talked to about everything, especially when I was going through all my bullying stages and trying to kind of figure out who I was, trying different things that didn't work out. She was kind of my confidant, the one I always went to about everything. My mom was the one who fought for me a lot of the times. She was the one who, took me into public school and got that ball rolling for me. She was the one who took me to my first audition ever. It was at the Salina Community Theater. I was scared to death. I didn't want to get out of the car. We had just moved to Salina. She grabbed me by the hand and she took me inside, and I loved it. And from that moment on, from that first audition for Miss Nelson is Missing, as an 8th grader, I fell in love. And it's because she saw it in me, and she knew I could do it, and she knew I would love it, and she knew it was the right thing for me. She wasn't pushing me towards something that was going to make things worse for me, or that I, wouldn't enjoy. She knew the whole time. I think she knew, and she was right. I mean, today I'm 21 years old. I'm about to graduate college, and it's my major, it's my career choice, and she was there every step of the way, and I believe that she's still here with me every step of the way.
Well, Dad, where's the top of it? Dad have to do it after he opens this big giant box.
My mom started to get sick about my junior year of high school, and at that point, nobody really knew what it was. They just knew, something was up, and they couldn't really figure out what it was until about that spring, I think, and summer before my senior year. They had finally figured out that it was a cancerous brain tumor, and that was really hard for my family. Especially for me. I love my mom. I was a mama's boy. I took it really hard. But I also knew that these next couple of years were going to be the hardest, and that I needed to do everything I could to, make her happy, spend as much time as I could with her, really, relish these last couple of years. I mean, I didn't know it was going to be fatal at the time, but I treated it that way just because I knew how serious it was and how important that she was to me. The worst of the worst was my end of my senior year, going into the summer of my senior year, going into college. That was a really hard time, especially for just me personally. I, was leaving high school, trying to find what college I wanted to go to, worrying about going to auditions. I really wanted, to do theater, but I needed to be with my mom. There was just no doubt about it. I needed to be there. The first couple weeks of school, especially here, are auditions. And I got cast in my first college show here, which was Antigone. I was so excited. My family was so proud. It was just like a really great project. So I started working on that the first couple weeks, and I got a call from my dad saying that my mom's not going to make it. And at that moment, I didn't know what to say or do. All I knew was I needed to pack my stuff up, and my sister came and picked me up, and we went right to Kansas City. And about 2 days later, my mom passed away. And I never felt more close to my family in my life. My sisters, like I said, they're my best friends. They were you know, sitting next to me nonstop for all those days sitting there, and we just sat and we just sat and held each other and we cried. And you know, all my family was there in one room, and just seeing how much love was in one room and how much my mom impacted every single one of those people. It was a little bit of feeling of relief too. I mean, she had been sick for almost 2 years, and I didn't like seeing her suffer at all. And so that feeling of, you know, she was free now. She wasn't in pain. She wasn't hooked up to machines. In that sense, it was nice. But at the same time, I lost my mom, my best friend. So that was really tough. The thing that made me okay to come back here was being in Antigone, was being involved in a project with a group of people that were so supportive. I got back here and everybody was, you know, there for me, asked me if I need anything, we're so just there for me emotionally, anything that I needed. And that's just one thing I love about theater. There's always going to be a family there. If I was not involved in that show, I don't know when I would have come back to school, if I would have come back to school. Yeah. I don't think I've reached my ability at all, my full ability. I feel like I'm always going to keep learning. There's always something new that I can learn, that I want to learn. I just feel that fire inside. Like, I don't know what else is out there. Like, I don't really feel like I know exactly who Joey Booz is yet. And that's okay. And I'm okay with that. But I don't think I could say those things if I didn't have all the experiences that I have had. Because I think theater has just done a lot for me, both career-wise and both in my personal life. I've done a lot of growing through theater that I don't know where I would have learned it from, don't know where I would experience it from, or been able to apply things if I didn't have theater. It's kind of scary. I don't know who I'd be. And I'm happy with the person I am today, but I'm really curious and wanting to see what's out there and, you know, seeing what else I can learn and who I can be.